Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great morning so far. My name's Taira Mandy, Director of Client Development with ReSource Pro, but today I am your panel moderator. Very excited to be joined by our panelists today for a discussion on a topic that I think is going to be relevant to just about everyone in this room, and that topic is change management. So with that, I will ask my panelists to introduce themselves. Rob, kick us off.
Hi, I'm Rob Hartman with Hub International for about 20 months. Before that, I was on the carrier side with Axis Capital, which is a specialty insurer and reinsurer. Before that, I was a partner at McKinsey & Company in the insurance practice. So my current role, Strategic Client Service Operations, is the clunkiest title anyone's ever been bestowed, but it means I'm sitting across different regions, different business units, looking for opportunities to do things more consistently, standardization, maybe even centralization, sharing best practices, things like that.
Great.
I'm Kristy Malm. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Embroker. I've been there for about 2 years. Was doing some Insurtechs for a couple years before that, and then had 18 years at Marsh McLennan Agency. Operations roles primarily in those companies. I did do about 8 years. I did my penance in finance, so kind of have the intersection of both of those, but really focused on transformation and organizational restructuring. So very familiar with the change management.
Great.
Kristy Novacek. I am an operations leader with Epic Brokerage. I oversee national small commercial business for the company. I've been with them for going on close to 6 years. I've been in the insurance business for 30 years. Started off as a producer and an agency owner for the first 15 of those years. Found my way to Aon. With that change in career, I started to kind of focus more on strategy development with focuses on marketing, sales, and then ultimately found my way to operations.
Great. Well, thank you all for being part of our panel today. Before we dive into serious business, I have a couple icebreakers to try and get to know our panelists a little bit better. So to kick off, selfishly, I could use some travel recommendations. So I would like to know, what is the best travel destination you've ever been to and why? Christian, maybe we'll have you kick off for us.
I'll go back to ones that I take my son on every summer. We tend to do pretty deep, big hiking trips out for about 14 days on the road. To me, those are the fun. There's so much good stuff in our backyard. I've been all over Utah and Arizona, mountain biking and hiking, and just kind of living, in a backpack. So to me, those are the ones that are the most memorable. I would probably say right in our backyard.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've got to go with Vietnam.
Wow.
$5 massages.
Okay.
And best food in the world. Yeah.
Awesome. Rob?
Iceland.
Iceland.
I did 6 months in the Navy in Iceland, and for 1 week, my wife got to come over and we toured all around the island. And it's my favorite because it's so different. The people were different, the culture's different, the landscape looks like another planet. It's the only place I've ever been that I don't feel like I'm on Earth.
Wow. Awesome.
Very cool.
Thanks for sharing. Okay, last icebreaker, and then we'll get serious. This one's a little deeper. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of career advice, what would it be? Kristy, maybe we'll start with you on this one.
You don't know nearly as much as you think you do. You should listen to the people that do.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, this question comes up and I struggle with it because I have so many things I'd love to go back and say. Growing up, I think that I was an entrepreneur at a young age, and I just was always breaking things and fixing them, and I didn't know change management was a word. And so I think I would probably be less critical of myself with failure, and because it's a path to the success. You don't know that when you're young. Everything is so hard, especially when you're on your own business. I would probably go back and say, look, you're on the path. These are just process points to get to the next milestone. So.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah.
Rob?
Mine is I didn't appreciate until I was in my 40s the importance of a network. I always thought networking was something that salespeople did at the golf course to, get business, and I didn't realize it was a key part of your career. If you come out of college and you think, well, in college, you take a class, you study for the exam, you get an A, and then you have the A. And then you get a grade point average, and the best grade point average wins. So it was easy, merit-based. And then you get into the real world and you realize no one cares what you know. They care how good a job you do. and you have to know people to help you. No one gets to a senior level at any organization without help from others all along the way. And that's what networking really is, having a group of people that will look out for you, create opportunities for you, that you can do something for, and in exchange, they do something for you.
Yeah, all great answers. I was asking for a friend. Those are great answers. Thank you. Okay.
That's funny.
Yeah, let's talk change management. First, I'd like to better understand where in retail insurance we're seeing the change. So in the past, what have been some of the major areas that have driven the need for change management within your organization? And Kristy, we'll kick off with you.
Yeah, I think the nature of change management has evolved. 10 years ago, if you're planning an AMS conversion, you would do an on-site workshop for a week, and the very first day was change management. You would spend half the day walking backwards and writing with your left hand and feeling the pain of change, and then you would talk about, this is what it's gonna feel like. You would show the curve. This is what it's gonna look like. We're super excited now, and then it's really gonna hurt, and then it's gonna get easier. And I think nowadays, we saw yesterday, we heard from one of our speakers, the average agency has 70 SOP changes in an average month. Change is happening literally every day now. And so change management has to be built into the way that you function. It has to be a natural process of how you perform work. So if you are rolling something out and you haven't led with, this is coming, here's your tear sheet, this is what you can expect, TLDR, this is how your job will be changing at least 4 times before that happens, you've kind of missed the change management boat. It can't really happen after the fact. It's still triggered, of course, by any large event, large process changes, anything where you are modifying how someone does their job in a significant way or even in a small way. But it really does, at the crux of it, change management is communication. Get out ahead of it. You want to make sure people know what's coming, how it's going to affect them, and how it's going to hurt them, right? Because they are going to feel pain. And the more you can kind of communicate that up front, the better. We're all here at the ReSource Pro Summit, so we use ReSource Pro. If you're changing teams, if you are moving tasks, any of that, you just want to make sure that your communication is solid, it's robust, and you're getting out ahead of it, like multiple times. You're just reiterating that.
Yeah. And Kristy, to your point, in insurance, it almost feels like we're in this constant, never-ending cycle of change. How do you balance the need for innovation with the stability and almost the compliance required of the insurance industry? Rob, you want to hit on that one?
That's mine. And there's 2 questions in there. One is, how do we think about, how bleeding edge should the insurance industry be in driving change? And then the other is, how do we think about this constant struggle? So the first, with the constant cycle. The first part, I'm going to be a little different from maybe other speakers that have been up here the past couple days. I'm not here to push you to do the judo flip or to think differently. Fail fast and break things, I think, is one quote from Mark Zuckerberg, or what's the other one? Fail fast, fail often, or move fast and break things. I don't know about you guys. I don't get paid by my boss to fail, whether fast or slow. I'm not paid to fail. I'm not failed to break anything. I'm paid to fix things. So that I totally get the point of view that says, hey, you have to be moving quickly and failing fast. I get it. But I think the insurance industry is a bit different. If I think about a continuum of hospitals, airlines, insurance industry on one side, and then like Facebook and Netflix and Uber on the other side. Over here on this side, if something breaks, not a big deal. Your Uber doesn't show up or shows up late, or you get a bad movie recommendation. Over on this side, your brain surgeon does something wrong, your airplane falls out of the sky, your insurance company forgets to renew your policy a day before a wildfire hits and you're not covered. So the stakes are a little higher in insurance. I don't think our policyholders, if you're a carrier, or our clients, if you're a broker, pay us to take a lot of risks. So I think we have to balance that with, if we don't change, we will find ourselves 30 years from now being completely irrelevant. If you're a carrier with a 75% loss ratio and a 40% expense ratio, completely unprofitable, and you'll be out of business. So you can't use the excuses that I just gave for not changing as an excuse to not change, but you have to be measured. So I think back to the second part of the question, how do you balance it? I think you have to look at where your organization is. How urgent is it? How in crisis is your organization? If everything's fine, you're a broker operating at a 33% margin and you want to get to a 34% margin, okay. Then you do that kind of in a measured way. You don't want to break anything. If you are a carrier and you're unprofitable for 3 years in a row and your board is saying, I'm going to fire everyone and start over, then maybe you have a crisis and you need to operate at speed.
Yeah.
So I think it depends. You have to look at your team, your situation, and go from there.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. I think a common theme we've heard a lot about over the last day and a half is technology, AI. Obviously, technology comes with a lot of change management as well, so I want to hit a little bit on those digital transformations. So how have digital transformation initiatives impacted your approach to change management? Christian, we'll have you take that one.
You know, that one was that one threw me for a loop because we've gone through so much digital transformation with Epic, and still it's continuous, right? We know when Kristy mentioned, change and how things are changing in people's jobs and causes anxiety. There's going to be friction, right, on the people, the end users. But when I kind of think about that, my approach over the last couple of years has evolved. We focus more now on the communication, right? I think that's always been, in the past, I look back at change before and how rough it was, before Epic. And you would get these corporate mandates that it's a new thing we're doing, it's a new strategy, it's a new initiative. And everybody thinks top down, everyone's just on board co-signing, and it's no big deal. And you start to look at all the failure rates of those strategies dying off, and adoption's very low. And then you're constantly working on remediation on why it's not working. And then I saw, this is not the way. There's got to be a better way. So, in order to kind of create a better change experience, right, for everybody involved, leadership, some people in the middle, managing teams, and then all the way down to everybody that supports the end user, I started to kind of work on what's going to be that better adoption, that better sustainability to make change, just more easy to embrace it. And so I started with communication plans. That was first and foremost, we're just not communicating enough to the right audiences at the right levels. And we're just assuming that somebody at the top said it and everybody started cascading that communication down appropriately. And we recognize there's just gaps all over the place. And it's not fair for the people that are ones holding the ball when it comes to the change management, because they're the least sometimes communicated. They're not in the know as much as you want them to be. So that was a really big key piece. The second piece that we focused on was delivering great training tools, learning management systems, video walkthroughs, SOP playbooks, making sure that we did proper onboarding, proper training. And then we realized that it's not set it, forget it. Even though we do give them the tools and the resources, change management is a long play.
Yeah.
And what we did was we said, we're going to beef up our support. So yeah, we did a conversion, we did a system training, we trained them on the LMS, they see all the videos, they see all the procedures. That should be enough, right? But it's not. So then we started to say, our adoption is long cycle. We need to stay in the support and keep checking in regularly, seeking feedback regularly. Because what you're doing is with feedback over, months worth of time, multiple milestones of feedback, you're starting to figure out where your adoption is starting to fail. And then it's like you step in and just modulize the training to say, okay, you just needed a little bit more of this. Maybe it's the accounting thing you didn't get. And then we now go back and remediate the accounting training. And now all of a sudden you start to get better adoption across it. The other thing is saying, and these are going to sound really simple, establish a Q&A feedback channel, something as simple as Microsoft Teams. And we know from our teams, we have a channel for every large initiative that we are working through. And so we put a moderator on there, a subject expert that sits there and works with the whole group of people that are involved in that initiative, all the end users, and as questions come up, we're trying to handle that stuff in real time. But that channel does start to tell you what are the gaps, where are the deficiencies in what the learning curve is for those end users. So it also kind of helps us spin off a remediation training. Hey, we got to pull everybody offline for 30 minutes because we're noticing a lot of questions coming up from the group, right? So something really, really simple like that is super helpful for adoption. And the other thing is, do not be afraid to continue to solicit feedback all the way through the process. Are my executives happy with the progress? Is my middle management team happy with what they're doing? Do they understand their role in the change management, right? They're supporting their teams, so they have to understand this role. And then I think lastly is, always sample feedback from your end users, just because again, you think what you're doing is amazing, but maybe your audience doesn't. And so figuring out where the messaging is missing is really important.
Yeah, I think those are great best practices.
Yeah.
If I've learned anything over the last day and a half, it is this message of technology is coming, innovation is coming, but it is still our people that will be the core of our success and the users of that technology that's going to propel us forward. So let's talk a little bit about our people and talent development. What role do you feel talent development plays in preparing your organization for ongoing change? Kristy?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard it multiple times, to your point, in the past day and a half, but it's really a tenet that I live by and we live by, which is all the systems in the world aren't going to help you if no one's using them. And the only way that you get people to use them is if they feel comfortable and supported, and like the product that you are delivering to them is helping them to do their job, right? Yes, everything has adoption pains and growing pains as people get used to them, but it's your job as a leader to make sure that you are hearing what they need, you are answering those needs, and then you are helping to put them into play. Yeah. And I think, when we think about traditional organization management or restructuring, you may not know this, but you're supposed to design the organization from a functional standpoint. And then over here, you have your people that you have fostered and nurtured. And you match them based upon not only what you think, where you think that they will excel, but where they're going to be getting the most growth and nurturing for themselves. What's the next step in their career? So if someone's been doing the same job for 20 years, and they're amazing at it, are you serving them by keeping them in that role? Or should you be looking at what the next steps, having that conversation with them? I like to tell my team that, if you aren't in over your head, you're not growing, right? And if you're not growing, you are gonna become unhappy, you will get bored, you are gonna need more to do. And so we're constantly having those conversations. Hey, if in 6 months we implement this tool, I think we might want to move this team around a little bit. Like, where do you think that you might like to contribute to that? Get them involved at the beginning. They're the ones that are doing the work. They're the ones whose hands are in the mix. They know better than you know what the pitfalls are. They know what works and what doesn't work, and they also know what makes them happy. And so involving them at the beginning of a process, whether it's a organizational transformation or a system conversion, or you're just, adding in bots to something, they're gonna be the best source of information. And that serves two functions. Number one, you're gonna have a better outcome. Number two, they are gonna feel involved and empowered, and like they are building something for them that they can buy into. And that's really important, I think, for morale and long-term success, because at the end of the day, a really fast, fantastic sports car is amazing, but it doesn't go anywhere if no one drives it.
That's great advice. One thing I know to be true about change and change management is that it often requires collaboration across many different functions. So how do you ensure effective collaborations across those different departments during change initiatives? Rob?
So communication is the first word that comes to mind with that, but Kristy and Christian have covered a lot of that already. So let's start with leadership alignment. So once it's communicated, does everyone's boss, whoever it is, the president, the CEO, the regional leader, do they agree that this is an important priority to do? Do they agree on the business value? If you don't have that, stop. Don't try to drive any change until everybody's joint boss agrees that this is an important thing to do. Okay, that's step one. Then step two, if you're the one driving the change, the well-crafted email drafted by AI or by corporate communications probably isn't going to suffice. So a lot of times you see the 1.5 page fully detailed email come out, and you think, hey, it's done. I communicated it to all the stakeholders. Half of them didn't read it. Some of them read it on a Friday afternoon just to scan it to see if there's anything urgent, and then they didn't think about it on Monday. So you can't assume that sunk in. So I think personal, person-to-person, leader-to-leader communications is really critical. Then it gets down to talking about collaboration across kind of functional silos or businesses. Are everyone's incentives aligned? If you're paid to drive growth and she's paid to come in under budget and I'm paid to drive the change, and we all have to work together on this, we're probably not going to get to a good outcome because we all have different incentives. We're all getting paid for different things. And then once we sort that out, hey, we all agree that how do our metrics at the end of the year, how are they supported or improved by this project? Okay, now we can get somewhere and we move on to the next thing, which is, what is the next thing? We all agree on the relative prioritization. So if this is number 7 on your list, it's number 1 on my list, number 3 on her list, we're all capacity constrained, and we might find that when push comes to shove, things are getting pushed down. So if you get all those things sorted out before you ever start, I find the cross collaboration becomes pretty easy. And then last thing, share credit. So if you're the leader, don't take all the credit when it goes well. Don't divvy out the blame when things go poorly. Take ownership of the things that go badly and share the credit for the things that go well.
Yeah, that's great advice. Any leaders in this room? Any people leaders? Show of hands, how many people in this room have a team that reports into them? A lot of leaders in this room. Okay, so this one's for you. How can leaders effectively communicate change initiatives to ensure buy-ins at all levels of the organization? Christian?
I had some really clever openings for this. Just because, after a long career of trying to continuously build and take strategies from corporate and try to bring them to life, my most politically correct statement would be, well-intended strategies take longer and fail to see success because of leadership and communication. And so what ends up happening in this scenario is, you have these great ideas and everyone wants to get behind them. And if you don't have what Rob just got done talking about, he had some really good points there. If you're not collaborating, you're not looking at alignment at the organizational level, how much resources, what's the priority? I mean, the strategy's dying at every check, every X mark that doesn't fit those boxes. And we just sometimes don't know it. You just don't have the proper buy-in. So what's worked for me, strong executive sponsorship. You got to start there. If you're the executive sponsor, you better be a good change leader to your people. If the ball is in your hand and it's under your review to get that done. If you need an executive sponsor, pick one well, right? Make sure you are picking a running mate that has good executive presence with the C-level crowd. I work with executive sponsors often in my career, and they've been great. And it comes down to making sure that they're keeping their C-level executives apprised, right? We don't necessarily always get the camera time with those executives to keep them on board with where what projects are at, any resource constraints. Hey, we need to move a few barriers. Also making sure that there's not an agenda changing up there that, unbeknownst to you, will change the direction of your project. And so I think starting off at the very top is very important. Also have a very good laid out strategy, project plan, business case. What I have recognized is there's a lot of selling involved in some of these change growth roles, change leadership roles. You are constantly selling this concept and how to get through this change at every level. And then you're doing it again and again and again just to keep the executive alignment and the leadership alignment. Make a list of the people you are going to affect. Every department downstream that's going to be affected by this change, I bucket all of these groups and I create communication plans for all of them. Because I need to know at every point there's going to be a breakdown, right? And I just want to make sure that we are driving the change to every level in the organization. Engage your leadership, whether it's your executive sponsor all the way down to the people that are moving the people, right? Those leaders too, coach them. They play a huge role in change management. You're not the only person making all of these decisions and conversations with the people. You need the leaders to all have the right talking points, understand that they have an influential position in change, and then they're going to be the ones that are providing therapy to their team members. So you need to make sure that they are very, very well engaged in doing that. Create engagement with end users. Always, as much as I deliver my summaries and where we're at with progress from an executive report out, I'm also trying to deliver it to the end user. So they understand this is where we're at with change. These are the notes. This is where we're, next steps coming up. We hate surprises. We don't want you to, find out 3 months from now we've been baking a cake and you had no idea. So we want to make sure that we're kind of getting people involved early in the process, which has been really helpful. And I would say lastly is create progress report and check-ins. I think that a lot of times people kind of go behind the scenes, and a lot of times people are have anxiety about what's coming out. I know they're doing something. I know the initiative is happening. I think it's just keeping everybody apprised, like from an executive report out all the way through your end users.
Yeah.
And that's been really helpful.
Hyper communication feels like a big theme on this stage.
Have we noticed
right
that?
now.
We're
I'm
getting all
noticing that. I am.
Communication across the boards.
Okay, with about 4 minutes left here, I'd love to hear some examples of real change management projects and lessons learned so that we can learn from your experience. So, can you share a specific example of a change initiative that maybe did not go as planned, and what were some of the lessons that you learned? Does anyone want to take that one? Who's got a good
There's only
example?
4 minutes left for that one.
No, go right ahead.
So we got an agency management system. We won't name any names.
Mine was AMS too.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we didn't do the thorough due diligence on it. We really bought into the future of what the product could be versus the reality of what the product was. And then realizing that without kind of going through and understanding all the limitations that we started this journey on, this digital journey, we ended up kind of getting pulled into a very expensive build of the software company, which delayed our ability to start wrapping tech stacks around the AMS, which delayed our ability to engage customers via automation and other things like the raters and all the things that we had, like this, big diagram of things that we wanted in our tech stack. We spent the first 2.5 years just spending into the product to get it where it was. And that was my opinion since I was at the beginning of this process, was the due diligence was lacking. We didn't go far enough to understand what were the right business unit objectives for the product, right?
Yeah.
And we got sold what the product could have been in the future. Now today, the product is what it is. We have built it, it's beautiful, it does work, but it's been a 5-year investment where we probably thought in our minds, this was a 6-month AMS training, cut all the data over, and we're off and running to start building the rest of the journey. And so that was, it was a delay in the timeline.
Yeah. Rob, Kristy, anything you'd add?
It's always the AMS.
Yeah.
It's always the AMS. When we first started MMA, we would acquire agencies and we let them do their thing. Sometimes it was dependent on their earnout, but we didn't have a plan to integrate them. And so when I started there, the big theory was we are going to get one AMS. And we piloted it with one agency in Boston, and it was a disaster. We picked an AMS that is primarily P&C driven, and we made a benefits shop use it. And so, the lesson learned, everything that Rob just said, Christian just said, transpired, right? It was a disaster. It ended up being 2 years. It should have been 6 months. But the lesson learned is that, your first release, it's gonna be messy, and that's okay. Don't spend all the time trying to be perfect. You will figure out what you need to tweak and fix as you go. Get something out there, get people in it. And UAT, user acceptance testing, is your best friend. And it should be every day, constantly doing things, testing your processes, not just kind of that checklist of like, yes, I did this. Oh, I could print a policy. I can make an endorsement. It literally is iterative, and it has to be continuous, and it will last a year, 2 years. But don't wait 2 years. Don't perfect it and then release it, because the expectations that you put on yourself for that, you are going to come crashing down, and it is not pretty. So that's very similar.
Progress over perfection is what I'm hearing from you. Okay, Rob, we'll end on you for a final note. If you could give one piece of advice to a leader in this room who's about to embark on their own change management project, what would that advice be?
It was going to be communication.
Okay.
But we've covered that. So let me do another. I'll do another one.
If you could give a second piece of advice.
The second piece of advice is be honest with
good.
yourself and with your stakeholders about how much work is it really going to be? How disruptive is it really going to be? No one benefits from sugarcoating it and saying, oh, this is going to be easy. It's just 4 things you have to do different. We can train it in an hour. And in reality, you know that it's going to be 3 months or 6 months. So
Yeah.
if everyone knows how hard it's going to be, everyone can plan for it. So
Yeah.
don't sugarcoat it.
I think that's great. Okay, on that note, we will wrap our session. I wanted to say thank you to everyone for your time and attention today. How about a round of applause for our panelists? Thank you so much.
Good.